My name is Akil Parker. I am a professor at Cheney University, and I also am the founder and director of a company called All This Math. Now, what is All This Math? So All This Math technically is an educational services company. We offer private math tutoring, also educational consulting, but it's a little bit more than that. One of the reasons that I decided to grow and develop All This Math is because I really wanted to propagandize mathematics to the Black community. Because one thing that has not been propagandized and marketed to the Black community in a positive way is mathematics, right? A lot of things are marketed to the Black community, fried chicken sandwiches from Popeyes, Nikes, designer brands, alcohol, but not mathematics in a positive way. Math has been marketed to the Black community as something that is not for us, that we're not smart enough to do. Generally, as a collective, you know, with the exception of a few individuals that might have been good at math, you might know somebody in your neighborhood or have a cousin that was always good at math or whatnot. Often that's what happens, but as a collective, mathematics has not been marketed to us. Now, why do I want to market math to the Black community? Because I believe that the true solution to our problems as a Black collective is independent nation building, right? If you notice the t-shirt I have on, it's a t-shirt representing the Republic of New Africa, which was an idea that developed in the 1900s. And there's some people still active today with trying to see the vision of the Republic of New Africa. And even if it's not that vision in that geographic location, then, you know, we still, I believe, need to have an independent nation in order to solve our collective problems and not just the problems of a few people. Also, this kind of ties into some of my studies of a brother, you know, a late ancestor, scientist, linguist, historian, mathematician, and physicist by the name of Dr. Cheikh Anta Diop. Cheikh Anta Diop issued a call to different scholars of different disciplines to come together in order to reconnect us to our African heritage. And mathematics is one of the areas that we definitely need, you know, because it affects all areas of our human existence, right? So that's one of my goals as well. So while All This Math is a private tutoring company, and we also do consulting as well, it's much bigger than that. I have a much bigger vision for it. And also, you know, because we understand that math really is about power. You know, math is about power, just like the sciences are about power. If you look at, you know, historically, the different formulas within your math class that you might have studied, the different names, whether it's, you know, Leibniz or Isaac Newton or Fermat or any of those people in a calculus class, or even, you know, Pythagoras back, you know, thousands of years ago, who actually studied in ancient Kemet, which we know today as ancient Egypt, but he studied under our African ancestors. However, Europeans have been able to have superior marketing, and in every textbook that you'll find, you'll see a nod or a you know, homage paid to ancient Europe for a squared plus b squared equals c squared. That's a little problematic, right? So we need that because this is about power. We need to understand that we can also use formulas and use algorithms and all types of things in order to solve the problems that we have, in order to not only build a nation, right, but maintain that nation. Because anything that you build, we all know you have to be able to protect as well, right? So some of the other things that, you know, we do at All This Math, I've also developed a teaching methodology or framework, if you will, called Histomatics. Histomatics, where I combine, it's how it sounds. I combine history with mathematics in a meaningful way, in a very intentional way, right? That really so it's a student, a child is able to not only learn history, but learn mathematics at the same time. And mathematics is used as an entry point to give a history lesson. History is also used as an entry point to give a mathematics lesson. I'll give you a couple of examples, right? So recently I was in a tutoring session with a young sister, and we were doing some work with equivalent fractions, right? Finding what the equivalent fraction is to finding out how to give examples of equivalent fractions to certain fractions. So one of the examples was 3/5, right? 3/5. So we're talking about how, you know, okay, all you have to do is pick any number, multiply both the numerator and the denominator by that number, 3/5 times 2/2. So that would give you, like, you know, 6/10. So that lets us know that 3/5 and 6/10 are equivalent. How is that applied in real life? If you're in school, you take a test. The test has 5 questions on it. If you get 3 questions right, you'll have a 60 on the test. However, if you took a test in another class, it had 10 questions on it, you got 6 right, you're still getting a 60. So notice how the value stays the same, but the numbers can change. So numbers can change, but value stays the same, right? But it's much bigger than that, right? We don't want to, as we say, as gamblers might say, leave money on the table. We don't want to leave money on the table, right? Because if we're talking about 3/5, then we may as well talk about the 3/5 compromise. We might as well talk about the United States Constitution. Might as well talk about the institution of chattel slavery. And Article 1, Section 2, Paragraph 1 talks about how people of African descent would only be recognized as 3/5 of a human being so that, the Southerners would not get too much voting power in the Congress, right? So we have to talk about that. And there's no reason why we can't talk about that in a mathematics setting, right? And so because a child needs to understand how to find equivalent fractions, but a child also needs to understand, especially if you're black and you live in the United States or you live in Western society, they need to understand the true legacy, not just the kind of, whitewashed and, what do we say, sterilized version or cleaned up version of American history and U.S. history. We don't want to just give that. We want to give reality. We want to give the truth because we want to tell the truth to our children. Because we don't want to lie to our children. Because a lot of us, we end up telling lies of omission. Even if it's not purposefully done or intentionally done, if we're not telling these stories about the way this country was really founded, the way it's been developed, then we're doing our children a disservice. Another example, I'll give you another couple of examples. One example deals with geometry. One time I was listening to a speech, one of Malcolm X's speeches, right? And he was talking about a cycle of poverty, right? Talking about the cycle of poverty in certain poor black communities. He talked about how many people start out living in a poor neighborhood or a poor community. And because they're living in a poor neighborhood or poor community, they end up going to the schools in their community which offer poor education, right? Poor education, low quality education. From that low quality education, throughout the K through 12 experience or what have you, if they don't drop out of school, they end up only qualifying for low-paying jobs. And because they qualify for low-paying jobs, when they're much older, after they've matriculated through that educational system, they end up back in the same poor community. So this is the cycle that Malcolm X was talking about. So when I'm listening to this over and over the years, and I'm processing this information, I've taught many geometry classes before. I didn't mention earlier that I've been a high school math teacher for the past 16 years, even before I started teaching on a college level at Cheney University, and I even taught on a college level at LaSalle University as well. But I've taught geometry in several, many instances, and we've dealt with circle geometry. We've had to find the area of circles, the circumference of circles. We've dealt with chords and arcs and all of this kind of stuff. But why not connect what Malcolm X was talking about with this cycle of poverty with a geometry lesson? Like, why not have that conversation? Because I believe that it would help, just as me as a teacher, it helps me to remember that content. Why wouldn't it help a student to remember the content? And also, that's something that, our children need to know anyway in terms of them having a strong understanding of social sciences and also the history and the reality of the United States. Let's get into another example. So another example of Histomatics, how it's applied in real time. When we talk to our children about money, currency, whether it be coins, whether it be dollar bills, there are people's faces on that money, right? So oftentimes in a mathematics lesson, whether it's on the kindergarten level or the first grade level, you might show a child, they might have a worksheet or a workbook, and on a particular page, there may be pictures of nickels, dimes, quarters, even a 50-cent piece, which we rarely see those, but, you may see those, right? So the goal or the expectation for the assignment may be for the child to add up the value of those coins. Cool. We can do that. We can add up the nickels worth 5 cents, the dime is worth 10 cents, the quarter's worth 25 cents. We can add those up. We can do that. No problem. However, we should also have the conversation with the child about who those men were that are on those coins. Who was George Washington? Who was he really? Was he the man that, like a lot of books will say, will propagandize to us falsely that he was the man that chopped down the cherry tree or never told a lie or, won the American Revolution? Was he these people? Or was he the person that was a slaveholder, right? Was he the person that found a loophole in the Gradual Abolition Act when the United States Capitol was right here in Philadelphia? Was he the person that when the Gradual Abolition Act said that, no, you were not allowed to keep enslaved Africans for more than 6 months? What he did was he would wait until about 5 months and about 2 or 3 weeks, and he would cycle and trade one of his enslaved Africans for somebody else down in this plantation in Tidewater, Virginia. So that way, that basically would reset the clock, right? So, was he that person? I think that's the person our children need to know about. When we talk about the nickel, Thomas Jefferson, we need to know, slaveholder. Also, he wrote and was very clear about his belief in the inferiority and the intellect of black people. These are things that our children need to know about. Also, him being not only a slaveholder, but a rapist. We understand that, right? We have to have these conversations about him and his, what was his relationship really like with Sally Hemings and maybe other women of African descent that we just may not know about, right? So these are the conversations that we have to have with our children, or else they go through life and go through their existence in this country not really understanding where they really are. So then they can't make proper decisions in this space because they really don't understand the space that they're in. And that's an ample opportunity to do those types of things and have those conversations. So that's Histomatics. That's something that I'm building out and I've been developing. I kind of just been doing it all along, throughout my teaching career. And in the last 2 years, I've decided to attempt to formalize it or sort of codify it and, kind of make it more formal. I know that's redundant, but yeah, just kind of try to put it, in a way that it can be duplicated and where it can be built out. And I'm being more intentional about it. So that's one of the offerings that, all this math is also bringing to the table. Because as I said, this is much more than just a tutoring company. We're really trying to shift the narrative. We're trying to change the comfort level that our people have with mathematics. Because, like I said earlier, a lot of people might have felt like, well, I was never good at math, or, I hated math, or I liked it up until the letters got introduced to it. It was cool up until then. But we really want people in our community to be able to really change their relationship with mathematics, to develop a more positive relationship with mathematics. And there are many ways that we can do that. It's just work that needs to be done, just like with anything else. Just like, if people are involved, learning about investing, learning about personal finance, learning about different types of self-care, all these types of things. Being able to view the world through a mathematical lens is just important, right? Because then you can really understand what's going on. It's just like with history. That's another one of the reasons why I decided to develop out Histomatics, because stories make more sense when you understand how to quantitatively analyze the story, right? I think about all the students that sit in social studies classrooms and all the students that might sit in history classrooms on the high school level, even the college level, and they read sentences in the textbooks that deal with percentages. So you might say, okay, well, 48% of enslaved Africans were brought to South America, or the country which is now known as Brazil, right? You can read that. Maybe you understand the words, you interpret the words, you see them on the page. But how do you really interpret that if you don't understand percentages and how they work, or what a percentage means? What does 48% really mean? How do you apply that in a real life situation? So this is why another reason I believe we have to combine history with mathematics. We have to combine mathematics with history. A couple other things. There's a YouTube channel that I've created. It's all this math's YouTube channel where I work out problems. I provide content. It's a free YouTube channel. I know there are currently a lot of math resources on YouTube right now, but to be honest, a lot of them are not culturally relevant to black folks and not culturally relevant to us, right? And that makes a huge difference. Similar to why there's a large push for there to be more black male, not just black male, but black female teachers in classrooms, right? This is the same thing, because on a certain level, in the proper context, representation does matter, right? I know I did well, and I happened to excel a lot in a lot of my coursework when I was able to sit in the classroom and look at people that look like me. That was just helpful. So that's one reason why we have the YouTube channel. Please, if you see the YouTube channel, subscribe to it, tell some people about it. Because what often happens is the main reason why you should, partake in this YouTube channel is because a lot of students, they go to school, they sit in math class, and if they don't understand for whatever reason, that's it. They just accept defeat, accept the failure. But I want this resource to be available. They can take out their smartphone. They can just go into the YouTube channel, pull up the same topic that they didn't understand in class. And when they're looking at the YouTube video, they find a video on the same topic at home, then they can pause it, rewind it, and then hopefully that light bulb goes off and they have that aha moment. Like, oh, that's all we got to do? Okay, I get it now. Well, why the teacher ain't just say this? Well, the way he broke it down. And believe me, you have the benefit of all the mistakes that I've made over the past 16 years with trying to teach different methods and different skills and different ways of, different aspects and mathematical topics, that I inject and I include in a lot of these videos. So one of the things that would definitely help a lot of us in terms of being able to excel in mathematics is how we perceive mathematics and how we conceptualize it, right? Math is really a language. Right? Just like Spanish, like Arabic, like Kiswahili, it's really a language. A lot of people have difficulty and challenges with math because of all the vocabulary and the terminology and just understanding like what is being told to you when you open up a typical math textbook, right? But here's the thing. I know, and a lot of people will probably agree, that the best way to learn a language is through immersion. Like if you want to go learn how to speak Spanish, go to a Spanish-speaking country and just be there, right? And just force yourself to have to learn the language because you need to be able to survive. You're going to need to be able to find food, find clothing, find shelter, find transportation, find entertainment. And before you know it, you're going to know Spanish, right? If math is a language, it's the same way. We got to really do math problems on a regular basis. We have to create households and environments for our children where we're having mathematical conversations. And we can talk about the same things that we're talking about in the house already, or in the living room, or in the kitchen, or even in the car driving wherever we're going. We can have the same conversations, but we can put like a mathematical spin on those conversations. Think about, quantitative analysis and things like that. And there's some small things that we can do. Like, when you ride in the car with your children, you can like ask your child to look at the digital clock, tell you what time, to have them tell you what time it is, or even if it's an analog clock. That's even better too, because a lot of our children don't understand how to tell analog time, and they need practice doing that as well. But regardless of what type of clock it is, whether it's analog, whether it's digital, have them tell you what time it is, and then say, okay, well, if it's 2:45 as an example, or maybe like some off number like 2:47. Let's say it's 2:47. But if you say, okay, we need to be somewhere by 3:15, say, tell me how much time we got to get there, right? And know that practice of those small little math problems on a regular basis every time they're in the car. That's an example of math immersion. Like you're immersing your child in math and you're having them think about math on a constant and regular basis.